I sat across from my parents at our dining room table, my guitar case leaning against my chair like a silent ally. The acceptance letter from Berkeley's pre-law program lay between us, but my hands held something different, a notebook filled with lyrics I'd written over the past 2 years. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something, I started, my voice steadier than I felt. I don't want to go to law school. I want to pursue music. I want to be a singer-songwriter. The silence that followed felt like glass shattering in slow motion. My mother, Catherine, set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision. Her face, usually warm and expressive, turned to stone. My father, Michael, removed his reading glasses and stared at me like I'd just announced I was dropping out of reality itself. Excuse me? Catherine's voice was ice cold. Did you just say you want to throw away your education for music? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing a different path. Music is what I love. It's what I'm meant to do. Michael stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is a joke, right? Some kind of rebellion phase? Ava, you're 22 years old. You graduated top of your class. You have opportunities most people would kill for. I know, but those aren't my opportunities. They're yours. This is mine. Catherine's eyes filled with something that looked like disgust. You're being selfish and foolish. We didn't sacrifice everything to raise a daughter who would waste her life on a childish fantasy. The argument escalated quickly. My father's face turned red as he paced the dining room, listing every reason why music was an irresponsible choice. My mother sat rigid in her chair, occasionally interjecting with sharp comments about wasted potential and broken dreams. Do you have any idea how competitive the music industry is? Michael demanded. Thousands of talented people never make it. What makes you think you're special? I don't think I'm special. I just think I have something worth sharing. I've been writing songs since I was 15, performing at open mics for 3 years. This isn't some random whim. Catherine laughed bitterly. Open mics? Oh, Ava, that's adorable. Playing for drunk college students in coffee shops isn't a career. It's a hobby that should have ended when you graduated. It's more than that to me, I insisted, feeling tears burning behind my eyes. I've connected with people through my music. I've seen how it affects them. That matters. What matters, Michael said firmly, is security. Stability. A future you can build on. Music can't give you that. It's a pipe dream, and we won't support you in destroying your life. Then I'll do it without your support. The words hung in the air like smoke. Catherine stood up slowly, her expression hardening into something I'd never seen before. If you walk away from law school for this nonsense, you walk away from this family. We will not stand by and watch you fail. I stared at my mother, unable to believe what I'd just heard. You're disowning me? For following my dream? We're giving you a choice, Michael corrected coldly. Berkeley or music? Family or foolishness? Choose wisely, because this decision is permanent. My hands trembled as I stood up, grabbing my guitar case. Every part of me wanted to back down, to say I was sorry, to choose the safe path they'd laid out for me. But something deeper, something that had been building for years, pushed me forward. Then I choose music. I choose myself. Catherine's face contorted with anger and disappointment. Get out. If you're going to throw your life away, don't do it under our roof. We raised you better than this, but clearly we failed. Those words cut deeper than anything else she could have said. I grabbed my backpack from the hallway and walked toward the front door, hoping one of them would stop me, would take it back, would choose me over their expectations. Neither did. As I closed the door behind me, I heard my mother crying and my father's angry voice saying something about spoiled children who didn't appreciate sacrifice. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, shaking and crying, before finally starting the engine. I had $3,000 in my savings account, a guitar, and a notebook full of dreams. It was all I had, and it would have to be enough. I found a tiny studio apartment in the city, 3 hours away from my hometown. The rent was $800 a month, which meant I needed to find work immediately. The apartment was barely bigger than a closet, with a bathroom so small I could touch opposite walls while sitting on the toilet, but it was mine. For the first week, I cried myself to sleep every night. The rejection from my parents felt like a physical wound that wouldn't heal. I'd pull out my phone to call them, then remember their faces when they'd told me to leave. The hurt would crash over me again, fresh and devastating. But during the day, I worked. I found a job waitressing at a diner that served breakfast and lunch. The hours were brutal, 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, but the tips were decent and the schedule left my evenings free for music. Every night, I'd come home exhausted, make myself cheap pasta or rice, and then pick up my guitar. I'd practice until my fingers ached, write until my hand cramped, and sing until my voice grew hoarse. The pain of my parents' rejection poured into every song I wrote. One evening, I found a flyer for an open mic night at a venue called The Underground. It happened every Thursday, and performers could sign up on a first-come, first-served basis. I circled the date on my calendar. This was my chance to start building something real. The Underground was exactly what its name suggested, a basement venue with exposed pipes, dim lighting, and walls covered in band posters. The crowd was small, maybe 30 people scattered across mismatched chairs and worn couches. The air smelled like coffee and old books. I signed up and waded through 7 other performers. Some were brilliant, some were terrible. All were brave for getting up there. When my name was called, my legs felt like water as I walked to the small stage. "Hi, I'm Ava," I said into the microphone, my voice shaking. "This is an original song I wrote called Worth the Fall." I started playing, and for the first few bars, my fingers trembled so badly I nearly stopped. But then muscle memory took over. The lyrics I'd written about taking risks and choosing yourself despite the cost poured out of me. I sang about bridges burning and new roads opening, about fear and freedom existing in the same breath. When I finished, the applause was genuine if modest. A few people came up afterward to tell me they'd enjoyed the song. One guy asked if I had music online. I didn't, but I told myself I needed to change that. As I was packing up my guitar, a man in his early 40s approached me. He was dressed casually but expensively, and something about him suggested he belonged in a nicer venue than this basement. "I'm Derek," he said, extending his hand. "I produce music." That song was incredible. "Have you ever recorded anything professionally?" I stared at Derek, certain I'd misheard him. "Your producer? Like an actual music producer?" He smiled and pulled out a business card. 20 years in the industry. I work with independent artists, help them develop their sound, and get their music out there. Your songwriting is raw, but powerful. You've got something real. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I've never recorded anything professionally. Just voice memos on my phone and some rough recordings on my laptop. I figured, look, I'm not promising you'll become a superstar overnight, but I'd like to work with you, record a proper demo, see what we can build. Are you interested? Every warning I'd ever heard about music industry scams flashed through my mind. Can I think about it? Absolutely. Research me, check out my credentials, talk to other artists I've worked with. I'm legitimate, and I only work with people who are serious about their music. Are you serious, Ava? I thought about my parents' faces when they disowned me. I thought about the tiny apartment and the early morning shifts at the diner. I thought about every song I'd written in the dead of night when loneliness threatened to swallow me whole. I'm serious. Good. Call me when you're ready to start. That night, I researched Derek extensively. He was exactly who he claimed to be, a respected independent producer who'd helped launch several successful careers. Artist testimonials praised his integrity and his ear for talent. This was real. This was actually happening. Working with Derek was intense. We met at his studio 3 times a week, spending hours refining my songs, adjusting melodies, experimenting with arrangements. He pushed me harder than anyone ever had, making me redo takes until they were perfect, questioning every lyric choice, challenging me to dig deeper emotionally. "This line here," he'd say, pointing to my notebook. "It's good, but it's safe. What are you really trying to say? What's the truth underneath the pretty words?" I'd rewrite it, and we'd work through it together until the song said exactly what I meant. The process was exhausting and exhilarating. For the first time since leaving home, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Money was tight. Studio time wasn't free, even with Derek giving me a generous discount. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, worked a second job cleaning offices on weekends. Some weeks, I survived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. But every sacrifice felt worth it when I heard my songs coming together in the studio. With professional production, with real instruments and careful mixing, my music transformed into something bigger than I'd imagined. After 6 weeks, we'd recorded 5 songs. Derek burned them onto a CD and handed it to me with a satisfied smile. Your demo is done. Now comes the hard part, getting people to listen. How do we do that? We start online. Social media, streaming platforms, anywhere we can get your music in front of ears. And we keep you performing, building a following one person at a time. I created profiles on every social media platform I could find. I uploaded my demo to streaming services, knowing it would probably disappear into the endless ocean of content. I posted covers and original songs on my accounts, filmed myself performing in my tiny apartment with questionable lighting and phone audio. For 2 months, nothing happened. My follower count stayed embarrassingly low. My songs got a handful of streams. I performed at the Underground every week, gradually building a small group of regulars who came specifically to hear me play. The rejection from venues was constant. I'd email my demo to bars and coffee shops, asking for performance opportunities. Most never responded. The ones that did usually said they were booked for months or weren't looking for new artists. My parents never reached out. I'd check my phone obsessively, hoping to see their names on my screen, but there was only silence. Part of me wanted to call them to tell them about Derek and the demo and the small successes I was building. But pride and hurt kept my fingers away from their contact information. Then one Tuesday, 3 months after recording my demo, something changed. I woke up to hundreds of notifications on my phone. One of my songs, Burning Bridges, had been shared by a music blogger with a large following. People were commenting, sharing it further, asking where they could hear more of my music. By the end of the day, the song had 5,000 streams. By the end of the week, 50,000. My social media followers jumped from 200 to 5,000 seemingly overnight. The viral moment felt surreal. Suddenly, people I'd never met were commenting on my music, sharing their own stories of family rejection and choosing difficult paths. They connected with the raw emotion in Burning Bridges, with lyrics that spoke about leaving behind expectations and walking into uncertainty. Music blogs started reaching out for interviews. Small venues began contacting me about performance opportunities. My phone buzzed constantly with messages, comments, and notifications. Derek called me, his voice excited in a way I'd never heard before. "This is it, Ava. This is the momentum we needed. We need to capitalize on this right now. Can you write more songs? Can you perform this weekend at a showcase I'm putting together?" Yes to both. The showcase was at a much larger venue than the Underground. 200 people packed into the space, and when I walked onto that stage, the enormity of the moment hit me. This was real. People were here, specifically to see me perform. But as I stood under the lights, guitar in hand, something terrible happened. My mind went blank. The faces in the crowd seemed to blur together into an overwhelming mass of expectation. My hands started shaking, my throat closed up, and for one horrible moment, I couldn't remember how to start the song. The silence stretched too long. Someone in the crowd coughed. I saw confusion on people's faces. This was my chance, and I was blowing it completely. Somehow, I forced myself to start playing. The first verse came out shaky and uncertain. My voice cracked on a high note. I rushed through the chorus too quickly, completely missing the emotional beat the song needed. By the time I finished, the applause was polite but tepid. I performed 2 more songs and they were slightly better, but the damage was done. I choked under pressure. As I left the stage, I saw disappointment on Derek's face, though he tried to hide it. "It happens," he said afterward, but his tone lacked conviction. First big show is always tough. I went home and cried for hours. All the momentum, all the attention, and I'd wasted it by freezing up. My parents' voices echoed in my head. You're not special. You'll never make it. We were right about you. For 3 days, I couldn't touch my guitar. I went to my diner shifts on autopilot, came home, and stared at the wall. The viral moment was fading. People were moving on to the next new thing. My one chance, and I'd blown it. On the 4th day, Derek called. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You had one bad show. Every artist has them. The question is, are you going to let this define you, or are you going to get back up? I don't know if I can. Then you've already lost. But I don't think you're a quitter, Ava. I think you're scared, and that's normal. Channel that fear into your music and show up better next time. His words stung because they were true. I'd let fear win. My parents' rejection, the pressure, the self-doubt, it had all crashed down at the worst possible moment. I spent the next month working harder than ever. I wrote 3 new songs, practiced until my fingers bled, and forced myself to perform at every open mic I could find. Derek secured me another showcase opportunity, this one even bigger, a music festival where record label executives would be in attendance. This is your second chance, he told me. Don't waste it. The night before the festival, I couldn't sleep. I ran through my set list hundreds of times in my head, visualizing every note, every word, every moment. I reminded myself why I'd started this journey. Not for my parents' approval, not for fame or money, but because music was the only thing that made me feel truly alive. The festival stage was outdoors, in front of a crowd of over 1,000 people. As I walked up with my guitar, the familiar fear tried to creep in. My hands started shaking. My throat went tight. But this time, I breathed through it. I looked out at the crowd and saw individual faces instead of an overwhelming mass. I saw people who'd come to hear music, who were open to being moved by what I had to say. Hi, I'm Ava. I said into the microphone, and my voice was steady. A few months ago, my parents disowned me for choosing music over law school. This song is about that choice and what it cost me. It's called Worth the Price. I started playing, and this time, everything clicked. My voice was strong and clear. My fingers moved confidently across the strings. The emotion in the lyrics came through authentically, without the desperate edge that had plagued my last performance. The crowd's reaction was immediate and powerful. People swayed along with the music, and I saw tears on some faces during the more emotional moments. When I finished my set, the applause was thunderous. People stood up, cheering and whistling. As I walked off stage, Derek was waiting with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face. That's what I've been waiting to see. That's the artist I knew you could be. Over the next 2 hours, 3 different people approached me. 2 were from smaller independent labels, offering meetings to discuss potential deals. The 3rd was from Maverick Records, one of the biggest labels in the industry. I'm Kyle from Maverick's A&R department, he said, handing me his card. We're very interested in talking to you about your future. Would you be open to a meeting next week? My hands trembled as I took his card. Maverick Records. This was the kind of opportunity most artists spent years chasing, and it was happening after just 6 months of serious pursuit. Yes, absolutely.
Great.
We'll be in touch with details. After he walked away, I stood there holding his card, unable to fully process what had just happened. Derek grabbed my shoulders and looked me in the eyes. This is it, Ava. This is the moment that changes everything. Are you ready? I thought about my parents, about the tiny apartment, about every sacrifice and struggle that had led to this moment. I've been ready my whole life. The meeting with Maverick Records took place in a downtown office building with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that probably cost more than my car. Kyle met me in the lobby with another executive named Patricia, who headed their artist development division. They walked me through their vision for my career. Radio promotion, streaming playlists, music video production, a full album recorded in their top-tier studio. They talked about tour support, marketing campaigns, and building my brand across social media platforms. We see real potential in your sound, Patricia explained. Your songwriting connects emotionally with listeners, and your story, the family rejection, the struggle, the perseverance, that's compelling. People root for underdogs. They offer me a 3-album deal with an advance of $250,000. The contract included creative control over my music, which was unusual for a new artist. They believed in my vision enough to let me maintain artistic integrity. We don't want to change who you are, Kyle said. We want to amplify what you're already doing and get it in front of a much larger audience. I asked for time to review the contract with an entertainment lawyer. Derek had already recommended someone trustworthy who specialized in music industry deals. Over the next week, we went through every clause, negotiating better terms in several areas. Finally, on a Wednesday afternoon, I sat in Maverick's conference room with a pen in my hand and the contract in front of me. This was the moment. Once I signed, everything would change. I thought about my parents and their certainty that I'd fail. I thought about telling them I'd be nothing without their guidance. Then I signed my name. The advance money hit my account 2 weeks later. After taxes and lawyer fees, I had $170,000 remaining. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having, but Derek warned me to be smart with it. This needs to last you through recording and promoting the album, he advised. Don't go crazy and blow it all. I paid off my credit card debt, bought a reliable used car to replace my dying one, and moved into a slightly larger apartment. The rest I saved, knowing my financial security was still fragile despite the deal. Work on my debut album started immediately. Maverick paired me with a producer named Angela, who'd worked with several major artists. She had a different approach than Derek, more polished, more radio-friendly, but she respected my artistic vision. We spent 3 months in the studio, recording 12 songs. Some were reworked versions of songs I'd already written. Others were new, written specifically for the album. Every track explored themes of family, belonging, rejection, and finding yourself when everything familiar falls away. The album's lead single, Burning Bridges, was set to release in 2 weeks. Maverick's marketing team created a campaign around my story, positioning me as an artist who'd chosen authenticity over security. The narrative resonated with their target demographic. Meanwhile, my parents still hadn't reached out. 8 months had passed since they disowned me, and the silence felt like another rejection layered on top of the first. Part of me wanted to call them, to tell them about the record deal, to hear them say they were proud. But another part of me knew their approval no longer mattered the way it once had. The single released on a Tuesday. Within 6 hours, it was trending on social media. Within 24 hours, it had over 1 million streams. Within a week, it hit number 15 on Billboard's Hot 100 chart. My phone exploded with messages from people I hadn't heard from in months or years. Friends from college, former coworkers, even my high school music teacher. Everyone wanted to congratulate me, to tell me they'd always believed in me, though most of them had been conspicuously absent during my struggle. Radio stations started playing my song. I'd be driving to meetings and suddenly hear my own voice coming through the speakers. The surreal feeling never quite faded. That was me. That was my song. People across the country were listening to words I'd written in my tiny apartment while surviving on instant noodles. Maverick scheduled a series of promotional appearances. Morning talk shows, radio interviews, acoustic performances for streaming platforms. I talked about my journey, about being disowned, about choosing dreams over security. Interviewers called me brave and inspiring. The narrative had taken on a life of its own. 2 weeks after the single's release, I was in a radio station doing an interview when the host asked, "Have your parents reached out since your success?" The question caught me off guard. No, they haven't. Do you think they will? I thought carefully before answering. I think people sometimes only see value in your dreams once they become profitable. But dreams matter regardless of whether they make money. I learned that the hard way. The interview clip went viral. By that evening, #DreamsMatter was trending on Twitter. 3 months after my album release, I was performing at a major music festival when I saw them. Catherine and Michael, standing near the back of the crowd, watching me perform. My heart stopped mid-verse, and I nearly forgot the lyrics. They'd aged since I'd seen them. My mother's hair had more gray streaks. My father looked thinner, tired. But they were there, watching their daughter perform for 15,000 people. I got through the performance on autopilot, my mind racing. Why were they here? What did they want? After everything they'd said, everything they'd done, why show up now? After the show, I found them waiting near the artist exit. Security almost turned them away until I told them to let my parents through. We stood looking at each other for a long moment. Finally, Catherine spoke. "We heard you on the radio. We've been following your career. Ava, you've done something incredible. Why are you here?" My voice came out harsher than I intended. Michael cleared his throat. "We wanted to apologize. We were wrong about you, about your music. We didn't understand." "You didn't understand because you didn't listen," I interrupted. "You dismiss my dreams without ever giving them a chance. You disown me for choosing myself over your expectations." "We were scared," Catherine said, tears forming. "We wanted security for you, stability. We couldn't see past our own fears to recognize your talent. Your fear doesn't excuse what you did. You told me I'd be nothing. You cut me out of your lives completely." "We know," Michael said quietly. "We know, and we're sorry. We're so sorry." Standing in front of my parents, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger at what they'd done. Hurt that still ran deep. But also a strange sense of closure. They'd been wrong and they knew it. "I needed you," I said, my voice breaking. "I needed you to believe in me even when success wasn't guaranteed. I needed you to love me enough to let me choose my own path." "We do love you," Catherine insisted. "We always did. We just expressed it terribly. Love doesn't come with conditions. Real parents support their children's dreams, even when they don't understand them." Michael nodded slowly. "You're right. We failed you as parents. We prioritized our vision of success over your happiness. Can you forgive us?" Catherine asked. "Can we try to rebuild our relationship?" I looked at them, these people who'd raised me, who taught me to read and ride a bike and believe in myself, before they taught me that belief had limits and conditions attached. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I've built a life without you. I've learned to be okay with your absence. I'm not sure there's room for you in that life anymore." "We understand," Michael said. "But we'd like the chance to try. To show you that we've changed, that we can be the parents you deserved all along." "I need time. This isn't something I can decide right now." They accepted my answer and left their contact information. As they walked away, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of letting go of the anger I'd carried for so long. My debut album, Uncharted, released to critical acclaim and commercial success. It debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart. Music critics praised my songwriting honesty and emotional depth. Fans connected with the themes of self-discovery and choosing authentic paths despite pressure to conform. Maverick scheduled a national tour. 30 cities over 2 months, my name on marquees and posters. Every show sold out within hours of tickets going on sale. The kid who'd performed for 30 people in a basement venue was now filling theaters with thousands of fans. The financial reality of my success was still surreal. After years of counting pennies and skipping meals, I had actual money. Not just the advance, but royalties, performance fees, merchandise sales. My accountant had to explain multiple times how much I was actually making because the numbers felt fictional. I hired a team, a manager, a publicist, a business manager. I moved into a real apartment with actual furniture instead of milk crates and borrowed folding chairs. I bought myself nice clothes that weren't from thrift stores. Small luxuries that represented how far I'd come. But success brought complications. People I barely knew asked for money or opportunities. Old friends resurfaced, suddenly wanting to reconnect now that I was somebody. The music industry revealed itself to be as cutthroat and political as any other business. Derek, who believed in me from that first open mic performance, became not just my producer, but one of my closest friends. "Don't lose yourself in all this," he warned. "Remember why you started making music." My parents sent a letter 6 months after our festival encounter. In it, They detailed everything they'd been too proud or scared to say in person. They apologized again, more thoroughly this time, acknowledging specific ways they'd failed me. They expressed genuine pride in my accomplishments. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I could bring myself to read it completely. Their words were everything I'd wanted to hear 8 months earlier when they disowned me. But now, wrapped in success and independence, they felt both too late and somehow right on time. I wrote back. Not a forgiveness letter exactly, but an acknowledgement. I thanked them for their apology and told them I appreciated their honesty. I explained that I wasn't ready for a full reconciliation but was open to slow, careful conversations about rebuilding our relationship. We started talking once a month on the phone. Awkward, stilted conversations at first, but gradually becoming easier. They asked about my music, my tour, my life. I asked about their work, their health, their days. We were learning to know each other as adults rather than parent and child. We watched your performance on that late-night show, Catherine mentioned during one call. You were magnificent. Thank you. I wish I'd been there from the beginning, she added quietly. I wish I'd been the mother who cheered you on instead of the one who tore you down. Me too, I admitted. But we can't change the past. We can only decide what happens next. At a charity event where I was performing, I met several young artists who were struggling the way I had. They talked about family pressure to choose practical careers, about financial struggles, about the loneliness of pursuing dreams nobody believed in. One girl, barely 20 years old, told me her parents had kicked her out for wanting to pursue art. She was living in her car and working 3 jobs while trying to maintain her creative practice. Her story could have been mine with just a few details changed. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about all the talented people whose dreams died because they lacked resources or support. I'd been lucky. Derek had believed in me, given me opportunities, helped me develop my craft. Not everyone found their Derek. I talked to my manager about starting a foundation. I want to help young artists who come from unsupportive families or difficult circumstances. Provide mentorship, studio time, maybe small grants to cover basic expenses while they develop their careers. That's a beautiful idea, she said. And with your story, with your platform, you could make a real difference. The Uncharted Foundation launched 3 months later. We partnered with music schools and community centers to identify talented young artists who needed support. The first year, we helped 25 people. Some went on to sign record deals of their own. Others found different paths but maintained their artistic practices. Helping others became as fulfilling as creating music. Maybe more so, because I knew exactly what that support meant. I remembered being that desperate person wondering if anyone would ever believe in me. My second album, Cycle, brought even more success. The lead single hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. I performed at the Grammy Awards. Industry publications called me one of the most important new voices in music. But the success felt different now. Less like vindication, more like responsibility. I had a platform and I wanted to use it meaningfully. My lyrics continued exploring themes of authenticity, family, belonging, but now they also address social issues and the complexity of forgiveness. My relationship with my parents had evolved into something neither comfortable nor hostile. We had dinner every few months when I was in town. The conversations were still sometimes awkward, still carried the weight of our history, but we were trying. I see now what we almost destroyed, Michael said during one dinner. Not just your career, but your spirit. That's what I regret most, that we tried to break the very thing that made you special. You didn't break me, I replied. You made things harder, but ultimately, I found my own strength. Maybe I needed that struggle to become who I am. Don't give us credit for your success, Catherine said firmly. You did this despite us, not because of us. She was right, and her acknowledgement meant something. They weren't trying to claim my achievements or rewrite history. They were accepting responsibility for their role in my story, both the harm they'd caused and the opportunity they'd created through their absence. Maverick offered me an international tour. 30 countries across 6 continents, performing for audiences who discovered my music across language and cultural barriers. The scale was overwhelming and thrilling. My parents came to my final show before the tour kicked off. They sat in the audience, and for the first time since my childhood, I performed for them with their genuine support. When I introduced them from the stage, acknowledging the complicated journey we'd traveled together, they cried. After the show, Catherine hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry I wasn't there from the beginning. I'm sorry I made you do this alone." I wasn't entirely alone, I told her. I found people who believed in me, and I found myself, which might not have happened if everything had been easy. Still, you deserved better from us. Maybe, but we're here now and that matters. Michael cleared his throat. Would you be comfortable if we came to one of your international shows? We'd like to see more of this journey you're on. The invitation surprised me. You'd travel to see me perform? If you'd have us, yes. We want to support you now, even if we couldn't before. I thought about it. Come to the London show. It's one of the biggest venues on the tour. They came, and they brought signs that said, "Proud Parents." The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but the gesture felt genuine. They were trying, and that was more than I'd expected a year ago. The tour was transformative. I performed for audiences who sang my lyrics back to me in accents from across the globe. I met fans whose stories mirrored mine. Family rejection, impossible dreams, stubborn perseverance. My music had become bigger than just me. It represented something universal about human resilience and the courage to be yourself. In Tokyo, a girl told me my music had given her the courage to come out to her conservative family. In Berlin, a young man said my songs about family rejection had helped him process his own complicated relationship with his parents. In Sao Paulo, a group of musicians thanked me for starting the foundation that had helped their friends pursue their dreams. These connections reminded me why I'd chosen music in the first place. Not for fame or money, but for the ability to touch people's lives, to make them feel less alone, to give voice to emotions they couldn't express themselves. My parents followed the tour on social media, commenting supportively on posts and articles. They'd become cheerleaders, albeit distant ones. Our relationship would never be simple or uncomplicated, but it was evolving into something real. Near the end of the tour, Catherine sent me a long email. In it, she explained that watching my success had forced her to examine her own life choices. She'd realized she'd spent decades living according to others' expectations, never pursuing her own creative interests. She'd started painting, something she'd loved in college, but abandoned for law school. "You taught me it's never too late to choose yourself," she wrote. "Thank you for being brave enough to show me that." I returned from the international tour with 2 Grammy nominations and offers for collaborations with major artists. The kid my parents had disowned was now someone established musicians wanted to work with. The irony was almost funny. But more than the accolades, I'd gained clarity about what mattered. I decided to take 6 months off from touring to focus on songwriting and the foundation. Success had been thrilling, but I needed to reconnect with the core of why I made music. During this break, I spent more time with my parents. We went to museums and concerts together. We had long conversations about art, life, and the courage required to live authentically. They were learning to see me as I actually was, not as they'd wanted me to be. "We spent so much time being scared for you that we forgot to believe in you," Michael said during one visit. "That was our failure, not yours." I appreciated his honesty. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was honest now. We'd all grown from the experience, learned hard lessons about love, control, and the importance of supporting people's authentic paths. The foundation expanded, helping over 100 young artists in its second year. Some were musicians, others visual artists, writers, dancers. All were pursuing dreams despite obstacles or lack of support. Watching them succeed felt like healing a younger version of myself over and over again. 3 years after my parents disowned me, I stood on stage at the Grammy Awards and won Album of the Year. As I held the trophy, I thought about the journey that had led to this moment, the heartbreak, the struggle, the stubborn refusal to give up on myself. In my acceptance speech, I talked about the importance of believing in yourself when nobody else does. I talked about family, both the one you're born into and the one you choose. I talked about the courage required to walk away from security and choose uncertainty in pursuit of something meaningful. To every person who's been told their dreams don't matter, I said, looking directly into the camera, keep going. Your worth isn't determined by others' belief in you. It's determined by your willingness to believe in yourself. My parents watched from the audience, tears streaming down their faces. After the show, they hugged me tightly. We're so proud of you, Catherine said. And so sorry it took us so long to see what was always there. I know, I replied. And I'm learning to be okay with that. The story of my success wasn't really about proving my parents wrong. It was about proving myself right, about trusting my instincts, working relentlessly, and refusing to let others' limitations become my own. I'd walked away from family, security, and expectations. I'd chosen the uncertain path, the difficult journey, the road less traveled. And in doing so, I'd found not just success, but myself. The lesson wasn't that parents are always wrong, or that dreams always work out. The lesson was simpler. You have to believe in yourself enough to try, even when trying means losing everything else. You have to trust that the person you become through pursuing your authentic path is worth more than the security you sacrifice to get there. My parents had told me I'd be nothing without their support. They'd been wrong. I'd become everything I was meant to be precisely because I'd learned to support myself. And that, more than any record deal or award or sold-out show, was the real victory. Not revenge, but self-discovery. Not proving them wrong, but proving myself capable. Not winning their approval, but learning I never needed it in the first place. Success tastes sweetest, not when it silences your critics, but when it confirms what you always knew was true about yourself. That you were worth the risk. That your dreams were worth the sacrifice. That choosing yourself, despite the cost, was the bravest and most important thing you could do.